Welcome to Momming as a Millennial, the podcast where we explore the intersection of tradition and modern parenting. Have you ever felt overwhelmed trying to balance being a mom with your professional aspirations, all while dealing with side-eye from your parents who think you're doing it wrong? Me too. I'm your host, Christine Gerizzo, a journalist, blogger, and proud mama of 2 young children. I'm so glad you're here with me. Together, we can navigate the complexities of millennial motherhood and find what resonates with our true, authentic selves. Let's dive in. Welcome to another episode of Momming as a Millennial. I'm super excited to introduce my guest for this episode. She has 17 years of experience teaching grades K to 12, and she's currently an English as a new language teacher, or an ENL teacher, at a math science technology school. In this role, she's helping students develop their listening, speaking, reading, and writing skills in English. So welcome, Mandy Kraska.
Thank you for having me.
So excited that you're here.
I'm very excited to be here.
Do you want to share a little bit about yourself for the listeners?
Yeah, sure. So as you said, I am currently an English as a new language teacher. Changed a while back because our kids speak multiple languages. English isn't just a second language, which is what it used to be. So I work with kids from all over the world, which is very fun. Mm-hmm. And I have been doing this for 10 or 11 years. I also have taught high school ELA. I've done literacy with the littles, but most of my certs are like birth through 12. So I could theoretically work with any of them, but I've been with high school, and that's my love. That's my passion there. But I am also a mom of 3. My youngest just turned 3 in April. My middle turns 6 in a couple weeks. And then my oldest turned 8 in July, which sounds very old.
Yes.
Yes, it does. It's crazy. So, yeah, mom of 3, a husband who has a crazy work schedule, so I mom a lot.
Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about that.
Yes. And, I live locally, work locally, and so we're all over the place. Yep. Between the 3 of them. Now that they're getting older, especially, like I was...
Activities.
Yes, all the things.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's hard.
Can relate to that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Another millennial mom, so happy to have you. Also, I'm very excited because you're going to bring that educational perspective to what we're going to talk about, which I think is interesting.
I was really excited to see that you threw that in there, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're going to get started. We'll talk about our personality types today and how they impact how we parent, so both positively and negatively.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to focus primarily on high-performing, more detail-oriented personality types because admittedly, that's what I am, and I don't want to speak for you, but we used to work together back in the day, and pretty sure that's how you would identify.
Yes, and probably why we also are still friends all these years later.
I think at one point my nickname was All Business.
Yes.
And so that gives you a little insight.
Yes.
So everybody has different character traits, and these character traits obviously greatly impact how we view the world and our day-to-day activities. And I'm sure, you've heard people say, oh, she's just type A, or, I'm a perfectionist because I'm type A. But what exactly does that mean? And what are the different personality types that somebody could have? So I looked a little bit into this, and previously it looked like it was mostly you were type A or you were type B. And it was just you fit into one of those boxes. But now there's a type C and a type D, and there's even a type X, which was interesting. Yes.
Didn't know that part. Okay.
And I learned about C and D recently because a colleague of mine had provided some feedback on me to another colleague, and they told them that I was type A and opinionated. So, of course, that led to me deep diving into what exactly does type A mean? Like, are they wrong? So I discovered these other 2 personality types, and I thought that was interesting and kind of going to be the basis for what we talk about. So I'm just going to give a quick overview of the 4 major personality types.
Okay.
So type A is now known as the director. So it's somebody who's goal-oriented, risk-taker, good under stress, that type of thing. So kind of like the traditional type A. Type B is called the socializer. So somebody who is relationship-oriented and outgoing and very enthusiastic. And then there's type C, the thinker, detail-oriented, logical, and prepared. And then type D, the supporter. So task-oriented, stabilizing, and more cautious. So historically, there seemed to be like a lot of negative connotation around type A and like you would want to be type B. But I think this new way of thinking about personalities has a much more positive twist. And the thought is that everybody is made up of a combination of these. So you're not just like pigeonholed into one thing. And if you are equal parts of 2 or more of these, then you're considered type X. So I think for myself, I would say I am type A, so the director, and then type C, the thinker, and maybe like a splash of type D. So what do you identify with here?
Well, if you wouldn't have provided those descriptions, I would have just been like, I have no idea what type X is, but I know for sure that I'm type A. You know what I mean? But since you did provide those descriptions, I feel like I am definitely X because I am a director. Like, I feel as I take on leadership roles a lot in general, at work, in my personal life, at home. The risk taker part is what got me, though. I wouldn't have thought that a type A person is a risk taker because I feel like type A people are typically perfectionists. They want things done a certain way. And when things are risky and you don't know, then I don't know. So
Yeah,
I found that to be interesting. But I'm also social, so B. But I'm also super detail oriented and prepared. And a thinker. I love to learn. I think about things in depthly. I'm very self-aware. I'm very observant. I'm cautious. I don't think I'm much of a risk taker. But I also think I'm a good supporter. Like, I think I'm a good friend. I'm actually, for the last few years now, I've been the union delegate chair in my building.
Oh, nice.
And so I'm supporting however many people we have in the building each year. So yeah, I think I'm a combo here.
Okay.
Which is fun to learn.
Yeah, right? You're not just one thing.
I'm not. Now I'm going to correct everyone who's like, type A Mandy. I'm going to be, actually, I'm X now.
I'm a combination?
Yes. Don't pigeonhole me here.
Yeah, I agree with all of that about you, knowing you. And I will say,
I'm glad I'm not too off then.
I struggle with the social piece. So that's why I just left that one out of, I'm not type B at all, I don't think. I could be a hermit, I think. But for me, I can be extremely organized and routine driven. Those are my comfort zones.
Yep.
I am definitely goal oriented and admittedly a perfectionist. I think even though it's not said, I think that's still part of being a director.
Yeah.
I really like to be prepared, and my pet peeve in life is being late. I absolutely hate being late to anything. So yeah, I would say definitely most of a type A, type C situation, and then that little splash of supporter, type D.
Are you able to get everywhere on time now that you have children, though?
Yes, for the most part,
Yeah.
but I do start us really
Yeah.
soon before we have to leave somewhere. We're going to get into that too, because I hate to be that mom that's like, hurry up, we're going to be late. So, but I'm going to talk about that a little bit down the road here. So I'm going to focus mostly, I think, for this conversation on the director and the thinker.
Okay.
I think we both fall a lot into those buckets. And I think that
Definitely.
that sort of thinking, causes a little bit more stress. We're millennial moms. We got a lot going on. We have to balance our careers because everyone has to work full time now with raising our children and dealing with our parents and all of that other, noise out there that we're hearing about how we're doing and whatnot. But then we're adding all that pressure on top of that to ourselves. So I think for the purpose of this conversation, we'll focus on the director and the thinker personality traits. But I wanted to talk about perfectionism because this is something I struggle with, and I think you can relate. It's a trait that I really think can impact all aspects of your life. And I'll just talk about myself for a minute. I wish I could not be a perfectionist. And even with this podcast, how we were just talking about audio versus video, I really struggle to let some things go sometimes. But when it comes to work, I'll spend too much time responding to an email that doesn't matter because I want to make sure that it's worded properly or that it's clear. And then when it comes to the kids, I've run into issues, especially over outfit choices. So I'll pick something out, especially my daughter, I want her to wear. And maybe we're going to match for the holidays, or I want her to match her brother, and she won't wear it, or she'll pitch a fit. And now, we're having an argument over this outfit. And it's it doesn't matter. Who cares if she's matching us for a family photo? None of that matters. But to me, I'm thinking,
Yep.
we have to look perfect. And even the other thing I thought of when I was thinking about this was birthday parties, because I know that I can be a little crazy for the kids' birthday parties. And I know I put that on myself.
Yep.
And, it's the extra decorations and the cake and everything about it. But I want the kids to feel so special and just be the center of attention and have everything they want. So again, like, I know I'm trying to create this perfect experience that's not reality. And I'm putting all this extra pressure on myself. And at the end of the day, I don't know if the kids care that much, but I'm looking back at my childhood and thinking, I hated that I always had to share my birthday party with my brother who was born in the same month as me.
Oh, yeah, that's a bummer.
I never had my own party. So now I think I'm just probably overcompensating for that. But at the end of the day, it's because I want them to feel special.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, all of those things. I
am
100% there with you. In fact, I'm prepping for my middle's birthday currently. So not this particular notebook, but I legitimately have notebooks for the kids. And that's how I plan. So it'll be like guest list, food list, dessert, decorations, grocery list, what I have for the favor bags, how many girls, how many boys, right? And then
forgot about favors.
And then I write down the gifts they got and who they got it from and everything.
Do that too.
Yeah. And because I want to make sure that I'm reciprocating correctly. You know what I mean? And I also want to see who was there, who actually came, who sent a gift, so we can make sure we send thank you cards and, all of those things. And my husband is always the one who's basically like, you're doing too much. You're putting all this stress on yourself. And I get it. But if I don't do this, I'm going to like get a tick or something, because I do all those things too. Everything has to match. We got to have the outfits and the decorations
the matching
and the
t-shirts.
this and the that. And I mean, I don't know if you saw pictures on social from my oldest birthday, Taylor Swift thing.
Yeah.
It's all the rage. But I mean, I went crazy, but it looked cool. And she had the time of her life. And I also did get to reuse everything because she had a girlfriend party because she's school age now and all that. And then we had like the family party. But yes, unfortunately, well, in some cases, right? Because there's positive and negative. But I have most definitely given my oldest this trait. And while it's positive in some ways, for example, she's my artsy kid. So her drawings and her coloring and all of this is amazing. Her creativity and all of that is great. And it looks so good. But sometimes then she's frustrated because she's not doing something perfect or she can't get something the first time. The most recent thing was, I know I'm a little late, don't judge people, but like a little late on the tying shoe situation because she went to kindergarten like kind of still pandemic, like they were wearing masks still and, all of that. And there were too many other things.
Well, and all the shoes have the
and
Velcro
all the shoes,
slip-ons.
Yeah, so like
we have the same issue.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And also I was battling a lot of other more important things at that point. So I'm like, shoelaces will have to wait. But this year she picked out a pair of shoes that have laces. I said, that's fine. If that's what you want, that's fine. We're going to have to learn to tie. And that she didn't get it the first time. And then and it's like I'm laughing because it's funny, but it's not because she was upset about it. But, the bunny ears and then the lace, they weren't all like the same length and it was crooked. And so then we got into all of that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I do to you? Poor thing. So, yeah, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree with my oldest.
Yeah.
And so I feel, for her. But then other times, I look at her with pride over that because it's like, she takes pride in the work she's doing. She wants to make sure that what she's doing is right, or she's really good about cleaning and organizing her room, and she wants that stuff just so, like all her little knickknacks and toys and all the junk we don't need that sits everywhere, but she wants it nice and it looks nice. Yeah. And so I guess a balance, right?
Yeah.
As perfectionists, we need to find a balance because it can definitely take us this way, but it can also take us, this way too.
I totally agree. And I think that a lot of my perfectionism has gotten me to certain, milestones, or I've had certain achievements because it's that grit, you don't want to give up type of thing. So I agree with you that it can be positive and negative depending on the situation.
Yeah, I definitely think that my perfectionism has gotten me, among other things, I'm sure,
Yeah.
right? But like has gotten me to where I am today.
Mhm.
Like everything I do, and I feel like I say this often in all kinds of situations, but everything I do 110%. You know, and that's important to me. And it could be anything from a birthday party,
Mhm.
right, for your kid, to responding to people,
Mhm.
or as a delegate chair, right? Someone comes to me with something, whether it's big or small, making sure that I look into it and I know the answer and I know what I'm talking about, and then, you know, relaying it to them, or following through, I guess.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes me, hopefully, you know, a good colleague and a good
Yeah.
co-teacher and a good teacher and a good partner and a good friend and things like that. So there are definitely a lot of good things I think about being perfectionist, because I think there are pieces that come off of being a perfectionist, right? Like
Yeah.
being goal oriented,
Right.
you know what I mean? And making sure that you're staying focused on those, or following through, and all of those things. But it's a slippery slope.
Yeah, just balancing to make sure that you're not burning yourself out
Mhm.
and you're not putting so much stress on yourself that, you know, you're having trouble sleeping or
Right.
whatnot, because I've been in those situations where it's just not that serious.
Right.
So, what about, this is another one for me, organization,
Mhm.
structure, routines. We are super routine driven, but
Yes.
how does that work for you? Especially because your husband works nights and he kind of has an odd schedule. Do you
Yeah.
feel that you overcompensate and you're even more organized and routine driven, or how does that impact what you're doing within your home?
That's a good question. I mean, I am, right, we're talking about thinker,
Mhm.
sometimes overthinker, over-prepared, over-detailed, right? So I feel like I'm always thinking ahead.
Mhm.
And so I guess probably yes. Like I'm probably a little over the top. Like I will get anxiety if I'm not prepared and we don't have a schedule or a routine or any of those things.
Right.
I always joke that anytime we go anywhere, we do anything, because you never know when the zombie apocalypse is going to happen. Okay? And so you need to have all of the things. Yeah.
In case you're out at a family function.
Yeah, you know? What if you're at the Bison's game and here comes the zombie apocalypse? You got to have the wipes and the this and the that,
bottled
you know?
water.
Yes.
No, for sure.
All of the things. Yeah. So my husband works swing shift, which means
Okay.
he's on nights one week, then he's on days, and then he's on nights, and then he's on
okay.
days, and that just keeps going round and round and round. So when he's on nights, and then I'm on my own in the evening and bedtime and after that, sometimes I actually think it's easier, because then they're listening to one person,
Okay.
which is me, which is who they usually listen to, because I'm the organized, scheduled, routine driven,
Yep.
right one. So sometimes it's easier because they know when I say it's time to do this, this is what we're doing, and they need to do it.
Mhm.
And it's, you know, it's not
No
our
question.
first time doing this kind of thing. So when my husband is home, when he's on days, it gets tricky because one, we have completely opposite personalities.
Opposites
And
attract, right?
so they say. And I think that my personality, whether it's type A or anything else, just is much more. It's really out
Amplified?
there. It is amplified. I'm very extroverted and he's not. So I think he waits for me a lot of the time. Like even if he does know the routine, it's like I'm going to wait for her, because when she says, then that means it's time for us to go upstairs, even though we're around the time we go upstairs, and he
Yeah.
could say, all right, we're turning off the TV, or we're stop doing this, you know? And also, he's not in denial that the kids listen to me better, but I'm also the disciplinarian. You know, I have the teacher voice and like it's time to do things. Here we go. It can be difficult. Some weeks or some days can be really smooth, and then some aren't.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know why or what. I mean,
The moon. I don't.
yeah,
Why do these
I
kids
mean-
act the way they do sometimes?
yeah, I mean, and why do husbands act the way
Yeah,
they do
that's
sometimes,
true.
right? So, like, it's both parts. You know, it's a struggle too. Now that the kids are getting older, they're all doing things. It's
Mhm.
on different days, and so that actually becomes another part of the equation in trying to stay on a schedule
Yep.
and a routine, because
Yeah.
we're getting home later than we do, and my kids get up early, so they're going to bed, you know, early. Well, we try.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, them being involved in things now definitely throws a wrench into things too. Or I didn't finish something at work, or the kids have homework, right? During the school year, they have to have paperwork, or I mean, it could be anything, and going back to being like a perfectionist, like sometimes there's things where I'm like, no, I have to get this done before we do the next thing,
Right.
and because he will wait for me a lot of times, then it's like they're sitting down there. So eventually I'll be like, okay, you don't need to wait for me. It's this time. Everybody head upstairs. Let's go be up there in a minute, and then I'm like scrambling to finish something. So yeah, it can be tricky.
I can relate to that. A lot of the times I have to say, okay, it's bedtime now if I'm doing something else and, round up the troops.
Yeah, because your husband is more introverted.
Yeah, but
in a way, like, and you are too, slightly in a way, but in a different way than your husband.
Yeah, I would say he's more extroverted than I am. And it's funny because you say you're the disciplinarian and he's definitely the disciplinarian in our house. And I feel like when it comes to, so we are very routine driven in my home. And I know that comes from my personality. But if I say, it's bedtime, or they know what's coming next. And if I say it, they listen because I built that routine. They know how we're operating. They know the order of what's going to happen up until bedtime. But if there's like a discipline situation, they don't listen to me. They listen to him. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting, the dynamic there. But I don't know. So I think like having a routine is great because the kids thrive.
Right.
They know what to expect, like I was saying. But the downside to this, and kind of to your point about how now the kids have all these activities and you're getting home later, I really struggle with saying yes to certain things. And I spoke about this a little bit on the previous podcast episode about traveling with kids. Like, if it's going to throw us off of our routine, I struggle with saying, yes, that's okay. You can play outside for another half hour. Or yes, we can go to this function that I know is going to end after your bedtime. So that's something that I'm working on. And I think I'm better at it now, especially as the kids are getting older. But I try to make those exceptions. It's a struggle. I don't want it to be the rule by any means, but especially in the summer and on vacation. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's hard. It's interesting that you bring that up because I just had this dilemma. So we spent the last 5 days in Jamestown visiting my parents, and the kids had a full day yesterday. We ended it, went back to their house, had dinner, and then we went and got ice cream, and we were headed home. And they still needed to take a bath and everything. And
it was bath night, so you wouldn't let them skip, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, also because we had played in the creek and we were sweating all day and everything. So it's it had to happen.
Yeah.
And one of them made a comment about how beautiful the sun looked. It was bright orange because it was 7:30-ish, which was already a little bit. And my mom said something about going to the lake to watch the sunset. And at first I was like, no. We got to get home. By the time we get home, we got to get baths. And then by the time we do this, and, and then they're not going to bed on time or they're going to bed late, And then, I don't know, my mom maybe sighed or something. I don't know. And I was driving and I was just going to drive back to my parents' house. And then next thing you know, I'm turning down to go to Celeron to go sit and, watch. And it ended up being fine. We only stayed there a couple minutes.
Right.
My youngest ended up falling asleep anyway. We took a couple pictures. The girls were excited. And we went home and took baths and everything was fine. So I feel like more and more as they're getting older, you're having that sort of dilemma with yourself of, do I do this or do I not do this? And I think that's a big thing for me too, is right here, right now, this is really bothering me, or this is going to give me heart palpitations or something, but at the end of the day, right, when they're adults or even in 5 years from now, are they going to look back and be like, Mom never let us do anything because we had to be on this routine all the time, or are they going to look back and say, remember when we went to the lake and how orange the sun was and, that kind of thing. So I too am trying at least to be a little bit more flexible, when I can.
Right. Yeah. And that's a special circumstance. You were there with your parents, they don't have to go to school the next day. It is a struggle. And you're right. It does get me a little bit of agita when I'm thinking about going off of our routine.
Yeah.
But they're creating these core memories. And I don't want to take that away from them because I was so stuck in my rut of, nope, we got to get to bed on time.
Yep. Yeah, it is a struggle. That's exactly what it is. It is a struggle for sure.
So just to call out, you might be wondering, like, why would you want to be less organized or, lower your standards and move away from these personality traits that we have? But I will say that I'm hypersensitive to the kids watching us, So my kids are always observing what I'm saying, how I'm saying it, my body language, that type of thing. And there's certain things that I don't want them to emulate that I do. So I think my perfectionism is partly driven by wanting to be a perfect mom for them.
Yes.
So it seems to me like it's kind of a vicious cycle. So I wouldn't say I'm lowering my standards or moving away from like who I am, but I can make sure that I'm reacting calmly when things aren't going as planned or when we're deviating from that schedule and let them see that this is okay. Spontaneity is great, laughing in the chaos and still showing them that when everything is going terribly wrong, even, we're still having a good time and that's okay.
Yeah. I'm working on that myself.
It's hard.
It's really, really hard. I think that might actually be one of the hardest parts about my personality. And then it's even harder when you're so self-aware and you recognize, after the fact that even if you've like made a noise, like, like they hear that.
Yep.
Or I'm trying to think, what else has bothered me in the past where it's like, Mandy, really?
Yeah.
You need to simmer down.
Yeah.
A little bit. And then I feel bad. Mom guilt is the worst thing ever.
Yeah. If I even say something like terse and I don't mean to, they'll say like, Mommy, why are you mad? And it's like, I'm not even mad, but okay. So it's like, you got to even watch how you're speaking.
Right. And I find, I hate to use a buzzword, but like overstimulated is the buzzword right now, but it's real.
Yeah.
It's really real. Another one is like mental load or mental capacity. And I struggle with both of those things. Sometimes the kids are making some obnoxious noise, or we took them to this little amusement park that's been around for ages. I was trying to be a good mom, and I went on the tilt-a-whirl.
Oh, God.
With the girls. Worst mistake of my life, but they're screaming, right? And I was like, I need everybody to be quiet right now because I was ready to like vomit all over the place. I thought I was going to pass out because I was so dizzy. I was like profusely sweating. And I was like, this is what I get for trying to be a good mom. I was like, never again. I had to sit down for like 25 minutes. I thought I was going to die. But,
God, those spin rides are the worst.
Oh, they are the absolute worst. But I do, going back to originally what you started talking about, I will sometimes see or hear the kids do or say things that I do. And I'm like, and sometimes it's funny. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, yeah. But then other times I'm like, oh, that means I'm doing it too often.
Yep.
Or I did it to them in a situation or at a time where it really stuck with them. And that makes me feel icky.
Yeah.
I don't like that. And then it's like, how do you reverse that now? So I'm trying to be more cognizant of that. But when going back to being overstimulated, when you're feeling that way and the mental load is just at capacity, it's hard sometimes. It's so hard.
Yeah.
When I'm working or when I'm not working. As a teacher, I don't ever do summer school. I want to be with the kids over the summer. But then I'm on even more than I'm already on, the majority of the year. And I was just saying today to someone how exhausting it is to try and find things to do all of the time over the summer because you don't want them to have too much TV.
Yes.
You don't want them to be indoors too much, and there's all that pressure.
Yeah.
And I think I did an okay, job of it
I'm
this,
sure you did
this
a
summer.
great job.
I mean, I
See,
tried,
and here we are again being hard on ourselves.
I know.
But to what you were saying about not being able to, like, how do I take that back? I mean, I've heard my daughter play with her dolls and like act out scenarios where maybe it's not something I want her to act out that I said, but you can only just create new memories and new interactions with them. I think the fact that we're both so cognizant of it and trying to do better is a great first step. And, we do our best. You can't be perfect all the time.
Right.
as much as you want to be. So.
Yeah. And I think I'm probably tough on myself because unfortunately, with my husband's work schedule, I don't have a partner,
Yeah.
Not his fault. This is all I've ever known. He's been on swing shift since we met. So it is what it is. And I deal with it. But that is a lonely space. And it's a lot because, like I said, that's me on all of the time. Because not only does he work swing, but he also works 6 days a week. He only gets every third weekend off. So yeah, some days, some moments, some weeks are tough. And I just hope that of all of the core memories, they make, that those aren't the ones that they keep.
And I've said it before, I could never be a stay-at-home mom. Like, I give so much props to stay-at-home mothers. Like, because you're right. It's a different level of being on. I would much rather be working on a ridiculously difficult task at work that's super high priority and has to be done at the last minute than be a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah. I don't know how women or men,
stay-at-home parent
do it at all. And it's funny because I often feel much more successful. I love going to work. I love my job. I love my colleagues. I love my students. I think it's also because I feel successful at work. I feel like I do a good job at work. And then I get home to try to parent and it feels so hard and I feel so unsuccessful.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say like 100% of the time, of course, but enough where there is like a palpable difference for me in the way that I feel at work than the way I feel at trying to be a mom and then do all the other things.
100% agree with that.
Yeah.
To the T.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and pause our conversation for now. We still have so much to discuss, so we're going to break this episode up into 2 parts. This concludes part 1, and we'll be back soon with part 2. Thanks for tuning in to Momming as a Millennial. If you enjoyed the episode, please share it with a friend or on social. You can find more from me at contemplativemama.com. Until next time.